Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. This is a video that I knew I was going to make over the next couple of months because it was obvious, I felt like, when I first reported on this about a month and a half back. But I made a video in October talking about XDefiant and how it was very clear that this game was going to tank. It was very clear that this game was, in fact, going to get shut down. And then everybody in my comments was trying to tell me that I was wrong. Everybody in my comments, and by everybody, I don't actually mean everybody. I know that a lot of you guys support my videos, and I love you guys for that. But there is a loud minority that hate watch me, and they tried to tell me that I was a grifter, that I was lying, that I'm trying to be a hater, that the game is perfectly fine, that everything is okay. A typical shill behavior, right? Well, apparently, that's not true. And then on top of that, they try to say, oh, look, see, you're lying because the executive producer said that the game is fine, and he's not going to lie, right? Well, apparently he did, because Ubisoft has officially shut down XDefiant about a month after the executive producer himself claimed that they had no plans to shut the game down and that the game was fine.
Who's laughing now?
Now, if there's one thing I really want to drive home with this particular video is to let it be known and let it be clear. I will always give my opinion about something, and I'm never going to sit here and pretend as if I'm right about everything, because you guys know that I've said that I was wrong on a multitude of things, right? But this is something that I knew that I was not going to be wrong on. It was very obvious, and I felt like everybody else should have seen how obvious it was going to be. Everybody can see how a game that goes from 20 million users to 20,000 is most likely going to be shut down. A game that is not making any money, that is not pulling in any profit, but then has to support servers that host gameplay like this 24/7. Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that they were going to shut this thing down relatively soon, especially since Ubisoft was losing an ungodly amount of money this year between Skull and Bones, between Star Wars Outlaws, and the eventual Assassin's Creed Shadows that they decided to wait till next year to release. I feel like it was so obvious. Everybody should have seen this from a mile away. And yet, the shills were trying to convince you that the game was fine. The shills were trying to convince you that you're just being a hater. The shills were trying to do what they always do, which is to tell you, hey, don't believe what you're seeing with your eyes. Don't believe what you're hearing with your ears. Don't believe any of that. Just believe what I say when I say the game is fine, because I like it and I benefit from it. So let's get into this article from Phantom Post. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. Now, again, the one thing I want to focus on is the utter lie that the executive producer put out about a month and a half ago, where it says that he had no plans to shut down. Now, granted, maybe that was true. Maybe he himself didn't have plans to shut down. But I cannot imagine how that could be true, considering that as the executive producer, surely you were probably informed before mostly anyone else that this game was going to be shut down. Surely you must have known at some point that things weren't looking very good. And then the problem is that you came out and you lied to everybody. You lied to people who play the game. You lied to people who were looking at the game to potentially buy it. And you lied to them and said everything was fine. Please continue to buy our game and support the game because we're going to support it for years to come. You were hoping that you could trick people into buying this game before the eventual shutdown, because you have about a 30-day grace period in order to refund people. And if you were hoping that people were going to buy it 2 months ago, that way, when you announce the shutdown, you can only refund people in the last 30 days, and you don't have to worry about 60. It's absolutely insane. It's a constant bait and switch that they do all the time. They're lying to you, and they want you to believe that what you see with your eyes is not true, and it's insane. But anyway, Ubisoft announced that it was shutting down XDefiant, as well as closing multiple studios, including in San Francisco and Osaka, that were working on the game, resulting in around 300 layoffs. Now, 300 layoffs is not anything light, okay? 300 layoffs, I mean, most teams are about the size of about 100 to 150 if they're, if they're AAA, decent size. 300 layoffs, that's pretty huge. I mean, it's a pretty big hit. And you know what? It's expected. It's expected, right? All of these shills out here, all of these activists, that they're so focused on the message because they don't actually have to lose their own personal money. They're out here pretending like everything is fine. They are the literal meme dog where they're surrounded by fire and trying to tell everybody that this is okay, right? The journalists out there over at Kotaku and IGN, where they talk about Ubisoft and how Ubisoft is doing amazing and how everything is fine. Look at how good things are for Ubisoft. Keep supporting Ubisoft. And they're dying. Literally, they're closing down studios now. They're laying off 300 plus people. They shut down a video game, a live service. I mean, how much proof do you need before people realize, okay, maybe the journalists are full of shit, right? Like maybe the shills are full of shit. For the people who are on the fence, right? They don't know whether to believe me or the shills. I totally get that. That's okay. Make up your own mind. I'll never tell you what to believe. I never want to tell you what to believe. I can only give you the information and you make up your own decision from there. But at a certain point, you have to admit that perhaps You know what I mean? Like perhaps there is something to what we are saying with all the nonsense going on in the AAA industry. But let's continue. In a blog post written by Ubisoft, Chief Studios and Portfolio Officer Marie-Sophie de Boisbert, the company announced, despite an encouraging start, the team's passionate work and a committed fan base, we've not been able to attract and retain enough players in the long run to compete at the level we aim for in the very demanding free-to-play FPS market. As a result, the game is too far away from reaching the results required to enable further significant investment, and we are announcing that we will be sunsetting the game. She then explained concretely that means that as of today, new downloads, player registrations, and purchases will no longer be available. Season 3 will still launch, and the servers will remain active until June 3rd, 2025, out of appreciation for both our dev teams who worked on it and for XDefiant active players. So they're gonna run this game until June 3rd of 2025, and then the game is dead after that. They're not even going to allow you to be able to download the game and play it for free. They're just going to flat out deny you and only let the people who already downloaded it play the game. They really want this game to die. It's so insane to me because look at the difference in story. Right? Look at what they're saying now versus what they were saying just a month and a half ago. How is it so different? Clearly, you guys must have known about a month to a month and a half ago that things were just as bad as they are now. There's no way that the game went from just being fine to all of a sudden being dead in a month. That doesn't happen. The game has been dead. The game has been dead. They've just been lying to you. They've been lying to their players who were giving them money, right? They were been lying to their players, the whales in the XDefiant community. They were lying to them in the hopes that they continue to give them money, knowing that this game was going to be sunsetted and killed off just like Concord. And this right here is my biggest issue with the gaming industry as a whole, is the lack of transparency between developers and gamers. There is no transparency because they don't want transparency. So when information comes out via a whistleblower or a leak or whatever, and 90% of the time it ends up being true, all the journalists look at us and blame us for why the game is dead. You know that's exactly what's going to happen, right? You know that's what's going to happen. The journalists, the mainstream media for gaming and everything like that, they're going to blame YouTubers again for this game dying, just like they tried to blame us for Dragon Age the Veilguard dying. It's suddenly our fault, and they did it with Concord too. It's all our fault. We have no power and all the power all at once, according to these people. Whenever it's convenient for them, they decide which way the pendulum swings. But otherwise, it's ridiculous, man. What are we doing? When do you admit that you guys are not helping the industry by shilling and lying to these developers and telling them everything is fine and community sentiment is amazing and everybody loves it? You lying to them is hurting this more than anything. She then explained that not only was the company shutting down XDefiant, but it was closing its San Francisco and Osaka production studios. She wrote, even if utmost half of the XDefiant team worldwide would be transitioning to other roles within Ubisoft, this decision also leads to the closing of our San Francisco and Osaka production studios and to the ramp down of our Sydney production site, with 143 people departing in San Francisco and 134 people likely to depart in Osaka and Sydney. I mean, wow. Wow, we are at the point now where this is such an epic fail. I mean, Jesus. And it's not like this game didn't have the player base. I want you guys to understand something. This game 100% had the player base. They had over almost, I think it was over or slightly under 20 million players. They had 20 million players, and they dropped down to 20,000 within a year. It is absolutely disgusting how much they fumbled the ball, and they have only themselves to blame. Ubisoft has only themselves to blame for why XDefiant is now dead, and they handed over the FPS market to Call of Duty that already had it for the most part, but they handed it over on a silver platter. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.